So today we're taking a look at the Kato E3 series Shinkansen, which is a Japanese mini Shinkansen. It's still standard gauge, but the width is narrow, and it's operated by JR East. This train's the Tsubasa and runs on the Yamagata Shinkansen line, which goes north of Tokyo. And I actually did get the chance to ride them when I was in Japan, although they recently retired just 2 months ago. But yeah, this comes in a set of 7 with 2 end cars and 5 intermediate cars, including 2 with pantographs. But before we get started, I'd like to thank Banzai Hobby for sponsoring this video. They are an online hobby store in Japan where you can get these Japanese model trains. I do have a coupon code you can use for 10% off any model train items. The code and link to their website will be in the description down below. But anyways, let's get started on car 11. So this is car 11, the lead car of the train set. Now you might be wondering why it starts with 11 instead of 1, and that's because it's attached to a second train, which I'll show you later on. So it has this pretty cool scheme with this purple and red and yellow stripes on its white, and apparently the purple is inspired by the Mandarin duck, Oshidori, which is Yamagata Prefecture's bird, and it really does look like a duck. See, this is the bill, and this is actually the newer livery in 2014. The old one was gray and green. It's very curvy around the top, and the bottom makes this wedge shape. So on top we have the windshield, which in the middle you can see inside it's clear, but the side ones are tinted black. But they are actual windows. If you put it to light you can see through. Then we got the 2 windshield wipers, which are just painted on, and this is set L70. You can see a bit of the train driver controls, and the dash is kind of curved, and there also is this radio antenna, which is inside the roof, only on that side. Then we have the headlights, which are angling down, because this is the E3 2000 series. The older E3s would just be straight across. Now if you take a look at the gradient, it turns from red to yellow, but if you look closely, there is a bit of a jagged edge to it, so this could be a bit smoother. And the shading is done with halftone dots, and it's about the same on the other side. And then in the nose, there are these covers, which can open up to show the coupler. So to reveal the coupler, just go underneath, and it's going to be 2 sets of switches. And in the box there is a screwdriver which you can use to open it up. So it comes out like this, and you can split it in half. Open it up to reveal the coupler inside, which you need to pull out from the second switch. And there we got the coupler to come out, and then we'll retract the covers with the first switch. So it looks like this, and then pull back the coupler. And then here is the final form, ready to couple to a train. So here I got the E5 series, and just gonna pop the nose out. You can see the cover detaches from the nose, unlike the E3, which they made functional. So here they are coupled together just like in real life. And here is the range of motion, which is surprisingly very wide, so I think it'll work pretty well in curves. So like I said before, this is car 11, and if you look at the E5, it says car 10. And to put back the cover, you just do everything in reverse. And there we go, that's how it works. Then at the bottom we have the snow plow. If you look closely, there's molding for rail wipers. Then we have this nice swooping shaping, and then it curves down here at the bottom. From the profile view, we got the truck, which shows it's an older Shinkansen, because newer trains usually have a cover. Then we have the door for the train driver, and the window has a silver outline, along with some molded in details. Also a rain gutter at the top. There also is this extendable step, which pops out and acts as a gap filler, and there is another one in the rear. Since this is a mini Shinkansen, they need to bridge the gap at standard Shinkansen stations. Then we have this gray JR logo, Japan Railway. Then inside we got some windows, you can see the seats inside. Now the first few rows, the bottom is flat, but the rest do come with armrests. And then in the back it does say it's the green car, which is first class. It's wheelchair accessible, car 11, no smoking. And there is a window for the conductor to stick his head out. There also are molded in details in the door and on the side of the car, including the bottom, which has these vents and little rivets bolted in. Then we got the LED board. It says it's Tsubasa 142 bound for Tokyo. Reserved seating for the green car. But you can also get the one bound for Yamagata and Shinjo, or run it as the Nasuno, which does have some non-reserved seating. Then inside we have a window, can't see much in there. And we have this graphic to represent spring, it says JR East Railway Company, and they have some nice sakura cherry blossoms. Then we have the car type number, bit of molding at the bottom, and there's the rear truck. And on the very edge we have this gangway cover, which I did find interesting. There is this little slit in the middle, and that appears in the real one. Alright, now if you take a look at the end, where we have the gangway. Now this is very loose, so it takes very little effort to move side to side. There also is a shroud for the next car's pantograph, make it streamlined. So for the side, you can see that coupler at the bottom. See, it's connected to the corridor, and it's just one big piece. So for the other side, it's pretty symmetrical, just the underside vents are going to be a bit different. and this corner represents summer with sapphire and cherries. Alright, now I'm going to take a look at the roof, which I was surprised that the middle part's painted blue. It's also fairly detailed with these bolts and lines, a random red stripe, and these two gray roof hatches. And in the middle there is this antenna which is kind of hidden in the body, sticks out a bit, and then in the back there is that roof shroud again. Alright, now let's go take a look at the bottom. So in the front we got the mechanism to open up the nose, then we got the truck, and here's the switch to toggle the headlights and taillights, some floor molding, and this model is made in Japan. Then here's the rear. So here's the next car number 12 with the pantograph. So the end is about the same, but you can see the insulators at the top. Then if you look at the side, we've got a bunch of windows with a door at the end. And the LED board is different, says reserve seating, but it's not the green car. And here's a view of the vents at the bottom. And then here's the other end, but it does have this insulator at the top. Then here's the other side, which the only difference really is the vents at the bottom. Okay, now for the roof. On the end we have the pantograph with these molded in wire detail and these white insulators. And this one's even on a diagonal for clearance. And there's some holes on the sides for the horns. And here's the pantograph raised up. And now I can draw from the overhead lines. And yeah, it actually doesn't require much movement. And here's a close-up view of it. Alright, so after that we got some gray panels in the middle and the insulator at the end. Okay, now for the bottom, which is pretty standard, not much going on here. So now here is car 13, which is the motor car, so it does have some weight to it. So on the end we have an insulator at the top, just like the other car. And this car uses a standard sized door, a row of windows, and the inside is flat. And then on the other end we have another insulator at the top, inside of the roof hump. And then here's the view of the other side. Okay, now for the top, we have the insulator at the end, some molded-in details around lines and roof panels, and the hump. So if you take a look at the bottom, you can see there are gears in the trucks, because it is the motor car, and has some additional molding in the middle for the drivetrain, which does stick out a little bit, and it is magnetic, and there's an arrow pointing to this side. Alright, so here's car 14, the other pantograph car, and it's actually quite similar. I mean, the windows and the bottom vents do all match up. But the difference is the doors. The first one was wheelchair accessible, but the other one's just standard. And their pantographs also face different directions. And the insulator layout, it's kind of different as well. The molding and the parts are not the same. But other than those points, it's basically the same exact car. Alright, so now we reached car 15. There's nothing really special about it, just it has these insulators on both ends. And here's the other side, which I guess one characteristic are these cool vents at the bottom. Here's a top view, and here's the underside. Alright, so here is car 16. Now it is similar to car 15 with these insulators on the ends. But if you compare it from the side, you can see this one has one less window. And this artwork of apples and rice stalks to represent autumn. Then for the top, this has red stripes in the middle. The underside is the same, but the bottom vents are going to be different. And then for the other side, this time the artwork is winter, with frost-covered trees of Mount Zhao, which in real life looks pretty cool. And here's the rest of the view across. So finally, this is car 17, the other end car. Now it is different from the first car because that one was a green car. It had these really large windows, while it's standard size on this one. The bottom vents are also different, as well as the door sizes. And if you go to the front, the nose doesn't have that seam in the middle, so it probably doesn't have a coupler to hook up to another train. It is missing that front part, and that tab is brown. It also doesn't have that headlight switch, and here's the back. And then this is the other side. So another difference is the roof. They move this antenna forward, and the hatches and red lines are placed differently. And a big difference is it doesn't have that hump in the rear. Alright, so now we have everything. Let's assemble the train. Alright, so here's the full-length train, 7 cars long. Alright, so here's my entire Shinkansen train collection. Now we have a total of 7. Now all these are by Kato, except the 500, that's by Tomix. Alright, so if we go down the line, we have the 500 series, the Dr. Yellow, N700A, the E3 series, the E5 series, E6 series, and E7. So the E stands for JR East, which these 4 are all JR East, while the N700, that's by JR Central, and these 2 are JR West. So if you look at the E3, it does have that sharp wedge shape in the nose, which is quite different from all the other Shinkansen. The angle is quite steep, while the other ones have a more gradual slope, so it does stick out quite a bit. And even from the front, you can see that cab, it rises much higher than the others. The E3 is also a mini Shinkansen, just like the E6, so the body is narrow compared to the standard width. It might not be obvious from the front, but on top you can really tell how skinny that is. Also, mini Shinkansen Shinkansen have a shorter car length, so you can see it is just shy of the full length, but it does make up for it by making the body much taller than the others. Another characteristic of mini Shinkansen, on the doorways they have these retractable steps. See, it's also present on the E6, but you won't find that on the standard width Shinkansen. They don't have to fill a gap at platforms. Also, the roof antenna of the E3 is kind of hidden in the body, while other Shinkansen just have it on the roof exposed, or next to the pantographs in a streamlined shell, or a regular one like on the 500. I also noticed how big the windows are on the E3. Everyone else uses a much smaller window. Maybe that's better for aerodynamics. Even if you consider the non-green cars, it's still much bigger. And if you take a look at the pantograph, it's much different from the newer systems, which are more streamlined and it has these spring towers. Also different from the N700. It is most similar to the one on Dr. Yellow, with these insulators and the bottom shape. The 500 series might be similar, although not quite. Another thing is, if you look at the roofs, generally the roof paint is the same color as the stripe in the front. So I was surprised that on the E3, they have this totally different bluish purple color. You can see it's a much lighter shade for these roof panels, but it's actually accurate. I found a video online, it even turning light blue. Alright, so here's a view of the cutaway. And again, you can see how skinny the E3 and the E6 are compared to the standard width. It's also interesting the E3 has a dark gray colored gangway, while the other ones come in a light gray shade. But you can see they are cross-compatible, even the other way around. Alright, so here is the full station, the one-sided DX platform. You can see it is quite long, So the first section is pretty simple. Unlike the island platform, which had a curve, this is all straight and boxy and has this wall to the side. And on the end we have a stairs, some guardrails with an access gate in the middle. Now the edge of the platform has a nice texture to it. There's also different molded in colors. And then here's the rear face of the platform, which it has a walkway sticking out. It does have different molding for the back face of the wall. There's also holes for the windows, although there's not really any glass in there. They also have these rain gutter downspouts molded in. Alright, and then for the main section, the roof slants off to the side. There also is an access ladder and some train signals. This one's used for emergency stop and it flashes red. Then we have a one-sided departure warning light. Then this is a stop position sign, so a 4-car train would stop here. Then we have an advertisement for Lily Dental Clinic, open to 9 p.m. And by the way, the inside does have these holes from the molding process. There also is a clock. And I labeled this station as Ebara Koen. This is a fictional name. It means something like Ebara Park. And I also have it written on the signboard. Then we have this advertisement for a Spokeplex. I think it's some kind of fitness center or gym. And there is a ladder to get up from the platform. Then we have a pair of signs saying the platform number 1. Looks like the train's coming at 11:15. Then we have some vending machines. These are pretty popular in Japan. They do light up, although I forgot to cut out the boxes until later on the video. Then after that we got the escalator and stairs, which is just flat in the bottom. And the front has a yellow exit sign, which I did find interesting. It's also written in Korean. There also is a roof skylight above, although you can't see much. Then I add this poster just to add a bit of detail, which you can't do. Then we have this boxy train departure signal light. Then we have an advertisement for a Tokyo Funeral Hall, and another one for the Kurikara Fudoji Buddhist Temple. And right over here is an emergency stop button, and I have a sign pointing to it, and I put it on the side so you can see it further down the platform. Right, so after that we have a single vending machine, and some trash recycling bins. Here's yet another platform sign, and here is a timetable with a little map. And the last advertisement is for Yamai's Music Academy. And on this end, I put double-sided departure lights. But yeah, that's about it. The rest is the same. And here's a look at the roof. You can see there's removable panels where the skylight is. So I got the station to try out the Shinkansen Platform Accessory Set because you need 2 of these platforms for it to work. And there's still a bunch of extra ones if you want to do another platform. But yeah, here's how it looks like with the platform doors. So we got some fences on the end and these gray walls throughout. That is just the molded in color, and it protects people from falling into the tracks. And here is the door that slides open, and the top of the walls do have a little opening. It's almost like a fence. And further down the platform we have some more doors, but you can see the spacing is going to be a bit different each time. And apparently they based this off Atami Station. So these are actually supposed to be fences instead of a wall. But someone said the bars would be too thin and you would need to have etched metal for that. Only the parts with the doors that's solid. So here's how it looks like further down the platform. And from the passenger's perspective, this is what you would see, I guess. Alright, so here it is with the E3 Shinkansen. You can see there's going to be that big gap between the train and the platform because it's a mini Shinkansen. Now, one of the challenges about having platform doors is that you have to align it with the doors on the train, and you have to set it up a different way depending on how long your train is. So that's going to be a bit of a problem since I'm using different trains. If you set it up correctly, these doors would be aligned with the train doors. So here I brought in my island platform, which has that curvy edge, but it is a problem once you add in the catenary support beams. You can see it doesn't really go well with the curve. Maybe you could fit it if you put it all the way back, but again, it is very close to that edge, so we do need to swap it out. So now it should fit fine in the platform. Now it's much similar to the one on the box, although it does seem like they cut out the second catenary. There also are these smaller ones which go in between the platform roofs. There are going to be holes underneath which you could connect it with, although when I did try it was kind of blocked by the wall, so it does seem like you have to cut it. Right, so here is the station with the catenaries installed, and you might see something like this at a Shinkansen station. They use this to hold overhead lines, and I have a couple more back over there. So there's not really instructions on where to place it, so I did look online at the product photos, and I think it's something like this one in the front. Then the roof section has one in the middle. Then I spaced it out so I have two additional ones in the back. And then for the top bar, I did have to drill in holes, but the DX station doesn't have any markers on where to place it, so I just lined it up with the first section, and I drilled just before the edge, and luckily it's just right next to the pin, so it doesn't overlap it. Then you just slide the pole inside, and that's how you get it. Now here's a ground level view of the station. It looks really neat with all this detail and two platforms. And this is when I figured out I made a mistake in the vending machine. You can see it is lit up, but it wasn't on my new one. And that's when I figured out I forgot to cut out the black boxes. Don't forget about that. So now it is working just fine. And another thing you can add is this ground beacon transponder for the ATS, automatic train stop signal system. And you would put this underneath the first car, and ideally you would glue this down. So Bonsai Hobby also sent me the Tsugawa Lake Tram Swan Boat and Ugly Duckling, and it's supposed to be a joke train, so something humorous to have on your layout. You might remember the rubber ducky from the Dr. Yellow video. It's part of the same series. And this is a swan boat carrying a duckling inside. I did ride one of these. They do have it in Tokyo Ueno Park. This is motorized, so you can run it. Now initially I thought this was a fishing rod, but it's actually a trolley pole, which can actually rotate. So you can pretend it's an actual tram collecting power from the overhead line, and you can even move it forward. It is actually pretty cute. I do recommend if you get this, get the puppy eyes. And the duckling apparently just hatched because you can see a bit of the eggshell. And it's all pretty much 3D printed. And I had to add the replacement pin. Here's the underside. And here's the ugly duckling from the children's fairy tale. It's basically a gray rubber ducky. And the second trolley has a swim ring, which it was a pain to add in the decals because they would just get stuck underneath here. The middle is actually double-sided tape. And here are all of them combined in a single train. And now it's time for the max speed test, so I'm gonna measure how long it takes to cross 18 centimeters. So it took 0.266 seconds, which is 2.44 kilometers an hour, or 1.51 miles per hour, converted to real-life scale 365 kilometers an hour, or 227 miles per hour. Compared to the real one, it does exceed the max design speed by 31 miles per hour, but compared to my other high-speed model trains, it's actually the slowest one in N scale. I wonder if it has to do with having that tall body, that really steep nose, and exposed trucks, so it's not as aerodynamic. So before we get into the final thoughts, thanks again to Bonsai Hobby for sponsoring this video. It's an online hobby store in Japan where you can get these Japanese model trains and the station. I do have a coupon code you can use for 10% off any model train product. The code and the link to their website will be in the description if you guys are interested. So for my final thoughts, the Kato N-Scale E3 Series Shinkansen. It's a lovely train, although it's not the fastest Shinkansen, it's still pretty quick. This model is nicely detailed. I did find it amusing how it has a special coupler cover when it opens to look more realistic, which is not present on the E5 and E6, which you can combine with just like in real life, and just have that pretty cool purple scheme with the orange and red stripes, as well as artwork for the Four Seasons of Yamagata. There is one flaw about this train because it has that complex cover, so you might have some trouble closing it, and the piece might fall out, but if that happens, you could just put it back in, you didn't break it, so that is a trade-off. And now for the Kato one-sided DX platform. It's pretty much the same as the island platform, it just has that wall in the end. Pretty common to see in Japan, and again, I needed it to install the Shinkansen accessory set because you need two platforms. I really like the look of the catenaries between the roofs, that's pretty realistic. It also comes with the platform doors, which is pretty common for safety, and there's also the ATS beacon you can add on the tracks, which surprisingly doesn't cause any issues for trains running, though I did find out if you put a platform too close to the curve, it may get caught on the end of a car turning and derail. I also figured out the holes in the DX platform are for Shinkansen seating, although I'm still not sure about the extra 4 holes. Let me know if you do. Now for the cons, it does require a bit of work and modification to add in the parts. For the catenary poles, I had to drill holes in the roof, which they are not pre-marked or pre-drilled, so I had to figure that out on my own. And it's not going to be 100% perfect, so they might sag a bit. You probably have to glue it if you want it exact. And for the platform doors, the middle ones were not so easy to push in, so if that happens to you, consider filing it down a bit to fit. But a bigger issue is that it kind of blocks the view of the train. Like apparently the real one they based it on had holes for a fence, but they just molded it all so it's one big gray wall. It doesn't look that great and you can't see anything. There's also other stations where they have windows in the gates, and I feel like that would be much cooler to look at. Kato does have a similar version, but I think those are for commuter rail like the Yamanote line. And lastly, for the Tsugawa Tram Swanbo and Ugly Duckling, it's a cute little train which I did find funny, having a tram pole, which I just learned recently that New York City subway cars use it in trolley museums. The hat is also cool, but you can only pick one. It's very speedy, kind of zippeting, but it's not very good at going slow. Also, unfortunately, the attachments just get caught up in the station catenary, so I did have to take it off. But if the height's not an issue, it can add a bit of comedy to your layout. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, give a like. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.